Hello everyone, for wherever you're joining us from. Some of us still hunkering down at home, some of us relishing a very cautious step back into the office. Welcome to today. As they say, necessity is the mother of all innovation, and today we're going to talk about what reopening looks like, but from a slightly different angle of visitor experience innovation. Because in the very act of reopening, our visitor-facing teams are having to get really creative with how we continue to delight visitors and deliver great experiences. And that's because in the visitor attractions industry, whether it's exhibitions or events or education and tours, we are an industry of exactly that, being experiences. And in reopening our doors, we do have to do the sanitizer and the visible frequent cleaning and the protective wear and capacity management and virtual or physically distanced cues. But we have to do all of that in a way that doesn't detract from our visitors' learning, entertainment and sensory outcomes, and still deliver an exceptional visit with high visitor satisfaction and engagement. Today it is my very big pleasure to welcome two experts and leaders in the field. We have with us David Rosenberg, who is the Vice President for Guest Experience at Monterey Bay Aquarium, and also the 2019 Chair of IAAPA, and also Chance Sanford, who is the Guest Experience Director at Space Center Houston. An exciting week in space this week. Thank you both for joining us, and to everyone who has tuned in today. We did have a third panelist with us who unfortunately can't join and will be sorely missed, but I'm sure we've got a lot to get through in the short time we have available. I have to say though, we have had an incredible week at home, which for me is in New Zealand. We have begun reopening 2 weeks ago today. So for the past few days, together with Cece from our marketing team, I've been gallivanting all around visitor attractions in Auckland, recording a new video series called Reopen Run, which is available at covid.dexhibit.com. We've been to the museums, the galleries, the aquarium, the library, the theme park, anywhere that we can get an idea of the visitor point of view, and also conduct some leadership interviews about the decisions and approaches behind the scenes. So we hope being able to live vicariously, as it were, through our eyes will help inform your plans as you shape the future for your visitors. I thought I'd bring you a quick snippet today of my favourite innovations from a few of those venues to start us off. On the left-hand side here, we can see MOTAT, which is the Museum of Transport and Technology. They're similar to a science and children's museum, plus they've got an amazing air hangar. They have a really large outdoor ground, and of course they run ticketing. They've got usual F&B outlets and a member database. So they've chosen to put in a drive-in movie series, which is very cool. And it's genius when you think about it, because movie theaters are one of those places that people are afraid to go back into, and they've all been quite quiet, though a lot of kids are really desperate to get back to the movies. And there's that added thrill of driving in at night. So for MOTAT, it's outside their usual opening hours. They can beat the movie operators on their pricing because they can price by car and not by person. So a fantastic innovation there. At Sea Life Kelly Towtons, which is in the middle there, we were really impressed by their approach to capacity. At the moment, venues like theirs have got a capacity limit of around 100 people, but they've been so smart about how they've optimized that. What they do is they bring their visitors through an advanced pass time sessions of 90 minutes, and then they give them a 30-minute window to enter. And then they use keeper talks to pull their visitors through the venue in a set path and stages, with their visitors physically distanced at each keeper talk using floor markings and areas that the audience can surround a keeper without having their view blocked by anywhere that they're standing. And then they encourage the stragglers at the end of each session to make their way through the aquarium, sweep in behind that session with a deep clean, and then start another staggered session behind it. So really, really smart approach there. And then on the right-hand side, I'm sure a lot of you are bulk buying hand sanitizer. This picture is of the Sky Tower, so it's an observation deck. The yellow and white plinth you can see there is a prism-shaped cardboard box that is a hand sanitizer station. And so it's a really simple thing, but having the sanitizer position like that means they can beautifully print lots of branding and messaging on the sides and then the sanitizer is a really convenient height. So it really stood out for us as opposed to some venues that just had a bottle off to the side. And then at Auckland Museum, a lot of you have probably seen that video. They've closed their high touch exhibits and digital interactives and things, but they have got these really gorgeous signs. I think this is a shell crab, if you can see it from their collection, with the cute pun, "You shall not pass." And you can imagine for all you Gandalf fans out there, it goes down particularly well in the home of the Lord of the Rings in New Zealand. And I think having something light-hearted to communicate bad news has really worked to lighten the visitor mood. We saw lots of people smiling and laughing at the sign rather than sort of being disappointed that their exhibit was closed. And then speaking of closed signs, my other favourite was at Rainbow's End, that's in the middle there, a theme park. Every time they mentioned what was closed, they mentioned what was open, provided some directions on how to get there, maybe a map. And it was really clever. It was a really small thing, but made a big difference. So in a couple of other venues, we just encountered a dead end in our journey because something was closed and we had to double back, and sort of that led to the, what do we do now talk, where at Rainbow's End, it was more like a trigger to, cool, yeah, let's go there instead. And then lastly, at Auckland Library on the right there, they put a visitor-facing staff member outside the front door and then another one just inside to do meet and greets. And they explain that they have a lot of guests with questions or people that just need a friendly hello after missing seeing other people for so long. And this provides them with a really great way to check that visitors know what's different, what's expected of them, what to do in a very friendly way. One of the things they're asking their guests to do was just to have a really quick visit, so that they were helping visitors to get to where they needed to go, but really quickly. So we saw also staff wearing some specially made jackets with physical distancing signs on the back, which I really liked. And it would be great to see these meet and greet team members in those. These sorts of things are really simple touches, but they were great little innovations that could have made what could have been an awkward experience really delightful, and I thought you'd enjoy them. One piece of advice that they all offered us in common though was that getting through the last few months and getting to this point of opening our doors is such an achievement in its own right. So they said, don't rush through it to the point that you miss marking the day. Take a moment to celebrate the achievement of getting this far with your team. Have an opening ceremony, pop a bottle of champagne, whatever it might be, or just stand and clap in your first visitors as a team. It's a really historic moment in the life of most of our institutions and not one to forget. And they also offered that the numbers are low and yes, capacity might be limited, but do embrace it. They said there's so many policies and procedures all being rolled out in one big opening day, and you need that space to simply iron out the details and iterate to get that equation right. So doing that with fewer pressures is a good thing, not a bad one. And with that, I'm going to hand over to our first presenter, which is David.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Angie. Thanks for the introduction. And I remember Angie and I speaking about this like almost a month ago, and talking about how we're all so focused on, of course, what we need to be, which is being closed, how to save money at that point, and looking down the road that we're going to reopen at some point, but not necessarily what is that experience going to be? How are we going to maintain the DNA of our organizations, the visitor experience? And while we know it's going to be different, how can we take advantage of that and make it something that really works, quite frankly, in our favor? And so I remember that was a great conversation that Angie and I had, and it's Angie, those are great examples that you just shared about how some organizations are embracing that. Now, my background, I started originally with Walt Disney World in Florida, then went on to hotels, and then eventually landed where I am today at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And I bring that up only because all three of these areas, the hotels, theme parks, and aquariums, just like everybody else on this call, are the areas that have been probably one of the areas that have been hardest hit during these closures. But while we're hardest hit, it's again created such a great opportunity because all three of these areas that I've worked in all have unique visitor experiences. Again, that's our lifeblood, their DNA. And I really enjoyed just reflecting on that and thinking about, boy, when I was in hotels, the visitor experience is what gave us the competitive edge. That's what our unique experience was better than hopefully the hotel that was next to us. And therefore, that's what we marketed, that's what we talked about, that's what we enhanced. And as that got better, our product got better, and we always stayed ahead of our competition. And again, it's a good reminder for me about why we need to always stay ahead of our competition. Last year, I had the honor of serving as chairman for IAAPA, which is the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. It was a lot of fun and very rewarding. But one of the parts that I enjoyed the most was going around the world and seeing the members all over the world and talking to them and shaking lots of hands, which we're not going to do now. But I had the opportunity last year to shake lots of hands. But the part that we talked most about was what was those unique visitor experiences at each of these attractions that made them unique? What is it that they rallied their entire experience around and said, this is what we stand for. This is the experience that we're all about. And this is what gives us the competitive edge. And I can tell you there was a lot of very unique experiences out there. And you can see this in my pictures here. I definitely got to see some of those. But as you see those, it also made me look back and say, okay, what is it unique about my visitor experience here in Monterey? And what is it that we rally around? And what is it that we need to preserve, not only during the closure time, but as we get ready to reopen? So with that in mind, one of the big things that is unique for us is our unique marriage of land and sea. We are in Monterey, California. Boy, it's beautiful out here. We have just beautiful coastline. It's overlooking the ocean. We take full advantage of that through not only providing just areas all around town for visitors to go experience, but great golf as well, great attractions. In fact, this is Pebble Beach Golf Course, which in a couple hours from now, I'll be out there. So you can probably envision me out there, hopefully hitting par along the way. And we have even had great shopping like Carmel by the Sea, which is a nice little European town, European looking town that's part of the Monterey experience as well. So this is all part of that again, that DNA, that visitor experience that makes us unique here in Monterey. And it was, as we're going through the closure and looking at what was happening, that's the stuff that we want to make sure we don't lose. We do not want to lose the key parts that really make us what we are and make us so popular. In fact, before we closed our doors, we had over 2 million visitors that would come through our doors on an annual basis. And while we know that's not going to be the number when we come back, it definitely was very humbling for us. And we always knew that that's something that one day we will be working back to. So with that, next slide, please. There was a couple things that we were saying that let's make sure we stay on top of this while we're closed. What is it that with this visitor experience, the visitor experience I've seen around the world, the visitor experience here in Monterey, what can we do now to make sure we don't lose that and more so get us ready for when we reopen? And there were a couple of things. First, we want to make sure that we're building excitement for our destination. It was just because we're closed doesn't mean we shouldn't get people excited about that beautiful coastline and what the destination itself has. We want to make sure we didn't lose our visitors, that we kept them engaged. They need to stay engaged with us online. We want to set expectations now and start planning so that as those expectations are reset, we have the ability to exceed them down the road. We have lots of volunteers and staff. In fact, we have over 1,400 volunteers that help us to operate the aquarium. We want to make sure we kept them engaged and actually use this time to enhance their knowledge with us. And we want to make sure that everything we did, we provided full transparency to the staff and volunteers and share that all with them. So let me share some examples. So like I said, Monterey, our biggest, one of our visitor experience is all about the outdoors. And while we didn't advertise the aquarium, we worked very closely with our local convention and business visitors bureau to make sure that we show the outside. Our websites, which is for us has been huge, and I'm sure it's been huge for everybody. We took this as an opportunity to even enhance it. We always had feedings online, but we wanted to make sure that we had lots of feedings that happen online. So we actually had narrations that took off, and we added our narrations online as well. So we really wanted to make sure that we were keeping our visitors engaged with us through that venue. Our volunteers, like I referenced, we didn't want to lose sight of our volunteers. Next slide. And so we really had great opportunities to continue to speak with our volunteers. In fact, the way we operate is we have 3 volunteer shifts a day when we're normally open. And in those volunteer shifts, we have anywhere from 30 to 50 volunteers that come in, they have a classroom experience, and then they go out and they interact with our visitors. Well, we didn't want to stop that. We wanted to make sure that we use this time again to really enhance their experience, keep them connected. And we kept having those guide shifts, just they went to online. So our shifts are ready to go, our volunteers are ready to go, and they know what to expect when we reopen. As far as communicating with our staff and volunteers, we also made sure that our emails, our webinars, our videos really lit up. And something that I found really important, and we started this early on, was not to miss any important milestones, because just because we were closed was not a reason for us to not celebrate our volunteers and staff. And we would send off stuff like this. So for Jerry's 15th anniversary, he got this email that thanked him for being part of us, but then all his managers were part of that email, and they all piled on and sent more emails. So we really were able to celebrate him and make sure that he, along with all the other staff, continued to be celebrated. So there was no lapse when we closed. So anyway, that's just a couple of examples about how we made sure that we stayed connected and geared up the visitor experience for when we reopen. So now let me move into, what does that mean? So let me emphasize, we are not open yet. We are excited to reopen, and we should be reopening again soon. And so when we do reopen, though, we have some really good plans in place. And it's a lot of this is what we've learned from other institutions, just like what we saw from Angie, but I think we have some creative ideas too that we've built while we're closed. And again, by maintaining that visitor experience while we're closed, we're ready to do that when we reopen. So what are those? Like I said, we've been setting the expectations for visitors already, and we're gonna really be setting those expectations before our visitors arrive. We wanna make sure that they know exactly what they get when they come through the door before they come in, and then we're gonna exceed that. They're gonna come in and they're gonna have high expectations. We're gonna give them exceptional visit. We're gonna ensure that the staff are engaging with their masks. That's been a big discussion for us. Our nonverbal communications all happen through our face. That's all the training that we've always provided our staff, is to make sure that you engage with a smile. Well, we're gonna cover that up. So what are we gonna do? Well, that's what we've been talking about, is how to make sure that we use our hands and we use our eyebrows. And we're actually been doing lots of training to make sure that we're providing that smile, that visitor experience while people are wearing a mask. In fact, we're gonna bring masks into the conversations as well, which is something that we're really excited about. We're gonna provide new experiences that were not ever expected. So again, exceeding expectations, stuff that they didn't get, those 2 million visitors that came through our door beforehand didn't see, they're now gonna have these new experiences. So there's something new. We took things away, but we added something else new. We know what our home runs are, we're gonna expand upon them. We're also gonna have lots of fun with the closed areas. We have quite a few places that will be closed, just like Angie showed in her pictures, where they had unique signs. We're also gonna have lots of fun with those closed areas. And last, we're definitely taking advantage of the shorter visits. We know our visits are gonna be shorter, and we're gonna take advantage of that. So let me show you a little bit about what that looks like. So I went online a couple days ago, and Universal was excited to put out that they're getting ready to reopen. And they had these great statements. They are setting the expectation line for their visitors about what to expect before they come in the door. The visitors will see this, and then they're going to exceed those expectations once they come in the door. And so I thought this was just a great example of setting the expectation and then trying to exceed it. I talked about the masks, and we've also come up with our custom masks that will be worn by staff. We have a couple designs that staff will choose from, but that's because we want them to be able to talk about the masks that they're wearing. And so if jellyfish are my favorite and I'm wearing jellyfish, I'm gonna make that part of my conversation with our visitors. And so we're definitely taking advantage of the designs. But again, we're really now before we're open, doing a lot of training about how to communicate a smile through those masks. We don't want to lose sight of that as being a big part of the visitor experience. And so that's a big part of what we want to make sure that we're doing. We've also talked a lot about making sure that the volume is turned up. So I'm talking louder behind the mask, and the volume around us is turned down. So we've actually been in our institution playing with what we're expecting for our crowd size and how to make sure that the speaker volume is up, and yet the ambient noise can come down a little bit to balance all of that. Our visitor experience before we closed was very well known as having over 35 live programs that would fire off every day. And so that's a big part of what visitors expect when they come inside, is to have different programs. So obviously this is not an option, what you see on the screen. We're not going to be able to do that in the near future. In fact, we're not going to turn on any microphones. We want to make sure that the microphones are turned off, because microphones draw crowds. But instead, we're using that same staff, and we're going to deploy them to doing lots of small interactions. In fact, I'm excited about this, because those interactions are going to be more personal. People are going to stumble upon them. They're not going to expect them. And it gives us an opportunity to exceed expectations. So while we're not going to have the big, large on-microphone programs, there's going to be a lot of them happening off microphone, and we're going to have lots of good interactions, really making for a great visitor experience. Outside, when I talk about home runs, we know our home run is when we get visitors out to talk about what's in the ocean. So they see the critters inside the aquarium, they have conversations about the connection, they go outside and they see the ocean, and we talk about what's in the ocean in front of them. We've always done this, but we know now that that's going to be even more popular. So a lot of the resources that were inside our building are being redeployed outside. And this is to create those memorable interactions. These personal facilitated experiences are going to be quite enhanced. And we know this is a home run area. Build upon it. If you're building upon your home runs while you're taking some things away, know what those home runs are and build upon them. That's exactly what we're going to be doing here as well. And then when we have closures, and when closures are happening, it's important to make sure that the closures are not seen as a takeaway, but again, an enhancement. And so this is a great opportunity for us, and I know it's a great opportunity for lots of us, that as you're thinking about what is closed, make sure that you don't think of it as a big wall that goes up with a closed exhibit, but rather, how can this become an enhancement? The example that I'll use for us is an area that I love. It's called Real Cost Cafe. It's an interactive area where visitors get to go in and they order something on the menu, and then the exhibit interacts based on what they ordered. Well, we don't think that's going to be a good opportunity for us right away, because there's a lot of hands-on components with it. So it's going to be closed, but we're going to have some fun with it. So it's going to be closed. It's going to have a big sign that says takeout only. And we're going to have waiters behind there taking orders and from 6 feet away and actually interacting with our visitors about what the takeout's going to be. So while it's a closed exhibit, I look at it as an enhanced exhibit. And I think that there's lots of opportunities. And as I've talked to lots of attractions, we all have lots of opportunities to take our closures and actually enhance them and make them a big part of our visitor experience. One other area for us is we have also lots of education buildings and other components that are outside the aquarium. And while these will be closed, again, it provides a great opportunity for us to educate people about things that we do and things that we all do to really make sure that we drive home their experience with us. Now, I referenced earlier that I know for us, we're expecting our average, typically we're around 3 hours average for visits. That's going to go down quite a bit. In fact, I'm estimating that's going to be down roughly 50% for us, mostly because we don't have these long programs, but we have shorter programs. And I'm sure all of us are going to see that we're having those shorter visits. And what a great opportunity. Having shorter visits is a great opportunity. That is not a bad opportunity, because it allows us, again, to know what are those home run visitor experiences. By enhancing them, building on them, taking full advantage of them, people will leave wanting more of that. And so while we might not have as many of those great home runs, the home runs that we have, if we're all jumping on them, enhancing them, and making them even bigger, that's going to be what's really people are going to remember. So a shorter visitor experience actually can be a good thing. And it's important that we look at it and we embrace that as part of the visitor experience that we have as well. Create those memories. And by creating those great memories, you're going to have that ability to do that. In fact, the memories that we like to create is, again, by seeing these animals, having some great interactions, but even more so by seeing those animals outside, those otters frolicking in the ocean, or by seeing the jellyfish inside of our exhibits. We know that the visitor experience is still going to be remarkable, and that when people leave, hopefully we're going to give them something to talk about with their families, just like I would go and be talking about with my family as well. So we have lots of great opportunities with us. So in summary, what I see is a couple of great opportunities. Again, we all have lots of opportunity while we're closed to build the excitement, to get our visitors engaged, set the expectations now so that we can exceed them, keep everybody on our staff and volunteers engaged, use this opportunity, and make sure that you're communicating and keeping everyone abreast of what the plans are. That's while we're closed. And when we open, again, in summary, is that we have great expectations, but let's go ahead and let's exceed those expectations. We have the ability to do that. Ensure that the staff that have masks, that's not a takeaway, but use those great gestures and opportunities to create that smile. Provide great experiences that were not expected. People that came are going to come with what they knew before, but that's okay, because if you can talk about what's new, then that we have great opportunity with that. We all know what our home runs are in our visitor experience, and taking those home runs and blowing them up and making them even bigger, that's where you're going to be key. That's going to be gold, especially as you have shorter visits. Take advantage of those home runs. Have fun with all the closed areas that we have, and let's make that an opportunity for us as well. And let's go ahead and really do what we do best. In the attractions world, we have an amazing experience. That's our DNA, that's our lifeblood, and take advantage of this and enhance upon it as well. So that's kind of what we're thinking here at Monterey. And Angie, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share that.
Beautiful. Thank you, David. I think you can always tell when someone's smiling by their eyes, can't you? And we saw lots of thumbs up and waving, and even a lot of dancing and laughing going on at the sites we visited, and it was so uplifting. David, you're muted, but I'm going to ask you just one or two questions, and then we'll move on for a chance. And I'm really curious. The Monterey Bay Aquarium is so well known for its visitor experience. How do you anticipate sort of returning to business as usual, and how fast might that happen?
Yeah, some of the conversations I've had with other aquariums or other institutions that are closed is they've been talking about either close or open. And we've been thinking about it as close, starting to open, and even a bigger open. And so different phases of reopening. And we definitely have a phased approach to how we are going to reopen, starting with one time of visit, most likely blocked visits. We'll have large groups come visit us at one time. And then eventually going into more of a reservation time ticketing system. So it's allowing those phases, and I'm not sure for sure that's the way we're going to do it, but that's kind of some options we have available to us. That's going to allow us to react to the different models or the different climate that's around us as we get ready to reopen. So it's definitely being ready and with multiple options, and be able to ready to phase up and phase down if that's needed as well.
Very nice. Thank you for that. So we're going to move on to Chance Sanford now, who's the Guest Experience Director at Space Center Houston.
Hi, Angie. Thank you guys so much for having me be a part of the experience today. And thank you guys for joining us. And it was a fantastic presentation, David. I think you'll see a lot of similarities between both what David presented and what I'm presenting. And I think it comes down to we're probably all experiencing the same thing right now. And really, everyone has been diligently doing all of their research and what their reopening plans are going to be. And now it's time to start to look towards those reopenings. So just to kind of set the tone for you for what Space Center Houston is, Space Center Houston is the official visitor center for NASA Johnson Space Center. We're a science center that has interactive exhibits. We also have theaters, we have stage productions, we've got space-flown artifacts. But I think one of the big draws too, and it's the #1 attraction that we have at the museum and the center, is our NASA tram tour. So we have a tram system that takes guests over to Johnson Space Center. They have the opportunity to explore the Apollo mission control, that historic mission control. And they also have access to a catwalk that overlooks the astronaut training facility. So where all the astronauts are training for the missions that are headed back to the moon. So all of those great opportunities are what our guests are used to, and that's the experience that they have. And now we have this kind of mashup of it, and we've given people in the past this free choice to, venture around the center at their own leisure and be able to experience all of these various items. And I think as David was focusing on there too, like the experience is going to change. So what can we do to change it? So as it shows here, we're going to reopen on July 1st, which was really exciting. We just announced that last week. So terrific that we're going to reopen. And we're reopening as a timed experience. So we'll have the time ticketing experience initially so that we can manage our capacities and manage our flows. As I talk a little bit about what our plans are, we were fortunate enough that there were a few things in the works that just kind of got pushed up in kind of the log as to what was going to happen. I mean, one of the most fortunate things that we had was that's shown on the slide is a Falcon 9. So it's one of the only places you can see a Falcon 9, and what better time than to celebrate it right now, as the Dragon is going to be visiting the ISS hopefully Saturday. So we have a really great opportunity with all of that that's going on. So just a little bit about what we are going to do with our crew members. Next slide, please. So just as David was saying, we are going to have masks as well, and we're going to wear masks. And we've been doing the training with our crew members and starting the training process just like Monterey Bay Aquarium is. First, it's going to be virtually. And then as we ramp up and gear up towards the reopening, you're going to start to see that take on even more. And we'll do it in a socially distanced method, and we have large spaces within the center to where we can space out our crew members. And so as we start thinking about, what do those trainings look like for our crew members, and how do we project those same smiles and moments, and how are we emotive? Like, one of the first things that we take into account is the safety. So above and beyond everything is the safety of our crew members and our guests. So that's why we have the masks in place, both for our crew members, and our guests will be required to have the mask too. Part of that reasoning is because of what I was talking about before with that JSC, the Johnson Space Center access, and visiting on the trams, as we go back to Johnson Space Center, and they have the requirements for masks too. So there's all of this together, we're all in this together, and we're gonna have an awesome experience. So going back to how we're doing this training is the virtual training first, and then when we bring them on board, we're going to have to do the kind of old style training where it used to be a back-to-back, and you would turn around and you could hear an audible difference when you could see a smile, or if we were talking about a various emotions. Now that's going to be socially distanced, and you'll have to turn around, and we may pick an emotion that we want our crew members to showcase, and we'll hear that audible difference from all of our crew members as it comes on. Next slide, please. So just like David said, we're not only having to go with the training for what it looks like for our crew members when they were behind the mask, but also how do you give the great big Texas howdy and a handshake when you can't shake hands anymore? So we are creating and going to be training the crew members on a standardized handshake or a standardized greeting. That way everyone's doing the same thing. And there was this period of time we got initially as we were all kind of going into the various levels of shutdown, where people we're starting to fear like handshaking and that sort of thing. So there's somewhat of an awkwardness as you approach someone, you know, are you a handshaker, are you not? And so to just be able to clear that up with all of our crew members and our guests, we're going to be training to a specific standardized greeting, so everyone's all on the same page as we go through everything. Next slide, please. And I think the thing that's most important and what we're gearing up and what we're ready to provide is as we lead through this whole experience is really leading through compassion and empathy, first for our crew and for our guests. And so we know their experience is going to be completely different, and we've been working on what that experience is going to look like. You know, for our guests, because it's a timed entry, that's never had been the case before. So that's going to be really important that we're communicating effectively about what that looks like. But we have the fortune to be able to theme it appropriately. Maybe it's a mission checklist, and so it's like, okay, I've got to get my online tickets before I approach the entry. I need to make sure that I have my mask on. You know, there's a sanitation check. Everything that kind of falls in line with what you may have seen as you were watching, you know, the checklist go through for the launch of the Falcon 9 the other day. So just like that, we're going to theme the entry sequence along in those lines. And then when our guests enter in, next slide, please. As our guests enter into the building, we're going to have to really peg out for them a directional flow. So in the past, like I said, it was really a free choice experience, but now you're going to be directed, okay, when you approach, and what you're seeing here is our 747 and shuttle, and it's an exhibit that takes people to the top floor. They can get a chance to experience the mid deck, the flight deck of the shuttle, and then go through the plane. And well, we're going to have to make that a directional flow now. So they're going to have to approach all the way to the top and make their way back down. And as we do all of these different directional flows throughout the center, we're going to underpin it with an experience that's themed appropriately. So perhaps it's you pick a role that you're going to be in. So kind of gamifying the experience for our guests as they move their way through the center. Next slide, please. And one of the things that we plan on leveraging most throughout the experience is our app. So our app has really been powerful, and it was set up to be an add-on, kind of an audio-visual ad hoc to the artifacts that you see and you go through. But what's really cool about the app, it uses beacon technology, so as you approach it, pops up something, but we can use that app to help to give the guest even more of a thematic journey. So we can do that, and we can pinpoint a tour for them if they're interested in exploring the history side of things or any of those different elements. We have the options within the app now to kind of route them around and make sure that they're getting to experience everything that Space Center has. But they have to kind of do it in a special sequence as we're controlling the different flows. Next slide, please. So some of the guest experiences that we have, very similar to David, we were going to debut 2 new shows, and they're in large open spaces. Our theaters are going to be shut down initially when we go back. We have a giant screen theater, and we also have another theater that we use for show productions and whatnot, and those are going to be shut down initially. But we do have 2 new shows that we can do in large open spaces, and we have floor icons to help people socially distance themselves. Our Space Explorers, which are the ones who perform the personal facilitated experiences, just like David was talking about too, are going to use a new no-touch way. So instead of the show and tell and do, it's really just a show and tell sort of approach now. We have pop-up science labs where kids and families used to engage in hands-on creative activities that brought science to life and connected it with space exploration. And now our pop-up labs are going to use make and takes. They're self-contained activities. They're going to get the materials and perhaps in a baggie and then be able to take it home with them. And we have a mascot, and his name is Commander Quest. He's just going to be out on another journey right now. So Commander's going to be on a bit of a hiatus, and when he comes back, it'll probably be like what you may have seen as you look through some of the other openings in the various parks. And it's more of a stage presence, so you can take pictures of him, probably just not the close proximity that you used to get with mascot engagement. We have interactives, VRs, and simulators, and those will all be temporarily closed as we initially gear up and come back. And, you know, we'll have restricted access to the interactive experiences. Those are things that right now in the governor's Texas's reopening plan are the points that we have to make sure that we're checking off. So those things are all going to be part of our new guest experiences. Next slide, please. But as I was referencing, so we have a tram tour. It's a unique element and really unique to Space Center. But again, it's the one thing that all of our guests want to be able to take. And so what we've done is created a virtual queue system within our app. As the guests come through the doors, they'll be able to select a boarding pass and a boarding group, and then that will push them, they'll get into boarding group, perhaps it's 1 or 5 or any of those boarding groups. And as we get ready to board that group, we can push notification to their phone that their tram tour is boarding. They can make their way back to the back hall for the queuing up for the different tram tours. And then they will be able to go on their tour. So it's a real quick process. From when they come in, they'll get the boarding pass, they'll get queued up, they'll go right back to it, we'll board them, and we're taking precautions as we board them onto the tram system too. But it's a really great one. We have it tied into digital signage now throughout the center too. So as perhaps you don't want to download the app and you needed a different solution, it'll also push out what the boarding group is. So again, like I was saying, we're really leveraging the app for a lot of various functions that had been part of the experience that we were anticipating doing. It's just that now it helps to mandate it. So it's been a big push for us, and we're really excited for all the functionalities that we're able to bring to it. But I think that gives you a good kind of highlighted brief overview of what we expect our experience to be. And like David said, it's something as we're coming back to, I think we're thinking about it as a phased approach too, and what that next phase will be. We're still doing a lot of the design work right now on what the graphics will be and what the packaging will look like. But there's lots of work that's going into the planning, and we're racing for the finish now. We're ready to go. So Angie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Fantastic, thank you, Chance. And I love that mention there of virtual queues. We saw a bit of that out on Reopen Run. And lots of approaches to queues. Some people put circles on the ground of where you could stand with instructions or feet, which was really effective. For those who are looking for low cost options, I saw in the comments there, even just spray painting on the ground, some markers of where people should stand was really good as well. And we've had a lot of questions and a lot of comments about masks. And Chance, have you thought about having those clear masks for helping people with lip reading for those that are hard of hearing, or perhaps different language speakers, or anything that's going to help your staff outside with the heat with a dark color mask?
Sure. So that's a lot. There's a lot to unpack in that. So let's start off with the crew members who will be outside in the heat, the Texas heat, wearing the mask. It can be a bit tough over time. And so what we've talked about is it's a rotation schedule with people to where we can get them outside, back inside, outside, inside, and really finding a good space where they have the ability to safely take off their mask, maybe wipe their face if they need to, and re-don the mask before they go back outside to engage with our guests again. For those with, from the inclusion side of masks and what should we do for guests who may need lip reading or a second language, again, we have a lot of benefit within the app that it has various languages, and it does have a lot of content. So we have audio languages, 4 different ones that can play throughout the center, so they're not going to miss out on the content within the center. If they needed to engage, we have designations for individuals who speak various languages. And we have looked at masks that have the clear opening so that guests could see our mouths or do lip reading if they needed to. And we've also been thinking of visually impaired guests who now we're asking to follow a specific guide in a specific path as they make their way through the center. And we had partnered with an organization called IRA before the center shut down. And IRA is a digital concierge. And so the guest with a visual impairment will just call the company on their phone and hold it up, and it's a camera, or IRA also designs glasses too that the guest may come already wearing. And then through audio, the digital concierge can guide them through the center rather easily. So there's not the same sort of contact that you may have had in the past where you were guiding guests with visual impairment.
Great idea. Yeah, it's good to see other approaches to that. I saw in the chat too, people using whiteboards with dry erase markers, which is a great idea. And we might move on to a few Q&A. We've had lots of questions come through here. David, I'll throw another one back to you. As other countries have reopened, are there any lessons learned on how they've crafted their experiences, maybe any missteps we could learn from?
Yeah, I know here in the United States, there's been one benefit is we've been able to watch other countries reopen and learn from them, just like we've learned from some of the pictures you took today, Angie, about how people are doing things. And so it was really exciting when Shanghai Disney announced that they're reopening, and seeing how some large attractions all the way down to small attractions have all operated differently, and keeping an eye on what they've been doing and how they've been doing it. Again, I think a couple lessons that we took away was how they're communicating their reopening, how they're setting those expectations, and the ones that have been successful at that, they've had great, they're already ticking up in their numbers and they're meeting those expectations of visitors. However, some people have reopened and not set the expectations before people came in, and those have been met with a lot of challenges. And so I think transparency and, again, setting an expectation and exceeding it, that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I've seen out there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so important. And I think what we saw was on the website and then in social media, and then when you bought your advance pass ticket, you get an email with more information. When you arrive at site, there was signage outside, signage in the door, meet and greets. There's so much of that happening again and again and again, and it was really, really effective as visitors coming in. A couple of questions here. I might send one back to you, Chance. And there was a lot of questions about cleaning of fabrics and surfaces, and I know we heard a few sort of missteps in New Zealand of people had added the wrong sanitization to a surface and destroyed tables and things like that. Have your team done any research in that space, or decided on what that cleaning schedule looks like in the operations?
For us, it's going to be in the restroom facilities. It's almost constantly. It's around every 15 minutes or so that they're going in and out and cleaning. We've also gone in and separated out in each stall separate, each sink spaces. Instead of using signage to visually represent that, going over and really starting to cover it up. And then when you think of water fountains, very similarly too. But from cleaning the initial stuff, what's nice is we were already doing quite a bit of sanitation, and we're just doing it on a more frequent basis, handrails and those sorts of things. I saw in the chat someone was talking about the surfaces in the theater, and that was one of the reasons why initially we've decided to close it off, is maintaining the distances, and it is difficult. And then our giant screen theater seats 500 people. So the going through and doing a re-sanitation of the theater after every showing would be quite intensive. So I think to say that is, you've got to pick and choose some of those places, those experiences, like David was saying, those home runs, and then make sure that they're done and sanitized and cleaned up frequently as possible.
Yeah, no, we saw a few sites that had digital interactives or other interactives still open, and they sort of had staff members hovering behind them that were quietly observing us from a distance, and when we'd touch things, they came in behind us and gave them a quick clean. So it was very, very visible, very present.
Yeah.
David, one more question I'll send your way. We've had a few people asking about you know, how do you know when it's appropriate to open? Just because you can doesn't mean that it's right. And how do you navigate that discussion with your board or your leadership?
Yeah, and I could say that's probably been one of our biggest debates here as well, is when is that right time? Here in California, we have, first we have the state guidance. The California Department of Public Health has been working with us on what that looks like. Then you go from the state to the county, which we're in the county of Monterey, to then the local city that we're in. And so it's almost a cascading effect. So it started the state, county, city, and then we have created our own filters that actually are above all those others, because even though in the county of Monterey may be ready for us to reopen, because our visitors come from all over the country and all over the world, we want to make sure that our filters are even deeper than that. And so, so we definitely create those filters as well. As I referenced earlier, and I think Chance referenced this as well, it's a little bit of the dimmer. Once we've met state, county, local, Monterey Bay Aquarium filters, then the dimmer can start to go up. But we also know that some of these filters can get hit and they can come back down again. So definitely that's been what we're keeping an eye on. And we'll be ready to pull the trigger when the time's right. We're definitely not rushing. Yes.
Yeah, I know here in New Zealand, a lot of venues didn't open when they could. The government gave a very clear indicator and said, now you can reopen. And a lot of them held back for a week or two. And it was wise in a way. One of the side effects was that it let the commercial venues open first before the sort of government-funded cultural institutions did, which was really nice for those that rely solely on revenue and don't have any other sources of funding. Particularly, there were a couple of days before schools went back as well. So it was nice that they sort of had that time to themselves. And some that have chosen to stagger their reopening back by a month, for whatever reason, they were installing exhibitions or they just wanted that extra time. To be honest, the visitation numbers are low. And so they're not, you know, by leaping to reopen on day one, you're not really gaining a lot in those first few days and even those first couple of weeks, if you do need to hold back, which was, I think, an interesting lay of the land that some people were choosing to do that later rather than sooner. Well, thank you so much. We are going to wrap up today, and do head to covid.dexhibit.com for more webinars, podcasts and resources, and plus there's also free access to our simulation tool for scenario planning. Great if you have to do visitor projections, which are otherwise quite impossible to produce at the moment, and you can also watch the Reopen Run series there. We'd love it if you could join in as you do reopen with your own video to show everybody what you're doing and what measures you're taking at your venue. As a follow-up for that series, we've got a couple more videos coming out, one for the zoo, the observatory, and the stadium as they start to prepare for sports coming back, which will be really exciting. Cece and I are also going to do a debrief live Wednesday 4 p.m. on our YouTube channel, which is Dexhibit, and what we loved and what we didn't. So we'll see you there. And to our speakers today, thank you so much for sharing all that goodness with us. A wonderful, actionable advice that we can take back to our teams ready for reopening, and to thank everybody for joining us here today. Wish you all the best in your own reopening journey whenever that day comes. Hope it is a happy one. See you all later.